Good morning, this is Tone Turner. This is the second reflection recording that I'll be speaking out loud the reflections of my meditation. Before I get into anything, I'd like to note that the last 2 nights I've cut back on coffee. I've moved my 7pm coffee forwards to 4:30, 5pm. It's made a world of difference, not to the length of my sleep, but to the quality. And I feel far more alive than I have done. I haven't even had a coffee yet this morning. And I expect that when I look back, I'm going to notice the difference in my tone of voice between the first recording and this one. The first recording, I just drank my morning coffee. I'd needed it after having the 7pm one the night before, most likely. And that was a cycle that I was deep in. Anyway, I'd like to set off the meditation, this time starting with a poem instead of ending with one, because I have a feel like it could influence the direction of the meditation in unexpected ways. I felt energy at the end of the poem the last time, so I'm curious about inserting that into the start of the meditation. Right, I'm going to pick a random page. Right then, number 50. This shows you just how uncreative I am sometimes when I pick the starting lines, and yet it still flows. Right, number 50, that's kind of nifty. Halfway to 100 rather swiftly. Don't remember much because memory's slightly iffy. Made space each day, time has flown in a jiffy. Creative habits, when they automate, start manifesting things that cause a higher rate of interest, happiness and development. Only your passions will help you make a dent. Like money, invest your time or wonder where it went. Paychecks take you nowhere when they're casually spent. Going round in circles makes you really want to vent. If complaining in your spare time, misery is what pays your rent. We're meant for more, we know inside we're better. Now that's for sure, so you don't have to fret around no more. River dry but getting wetter. I try to show the door using just these letters. The key takeaway from that one, I would say the lines, creative habits, when they automate, start manifesting things that cause a higher rate of interest, happiness and development. Only your passions will help you make a dent. You know? That's how I've felt for a long time. Poems like this, they lack something that I've been missing for a long time. And I mentioned this in the last podcast, but I think it's the drive of social connection. I just feel like having someone to do something with that you enjoy to do, it multiplies the energy that you get out of it. It bounces the energy that comes out of you in what you enjoy doing right back at you, because there's someone else also pumping it. I've had a good friend of mine who I never met in person, Jove Singleton, used to go by the name Shiva Maximus, now goes by Brahma Maximus. Just this morning, his message then talked about sending some musical recordings back and forth and just layering over each other's stuff to see what happens and what comes out. And that's an awesome, kind, creative offering. He knows how I've been feeling. And he relayed that he understands what it's like. He finds it difficult to start to do new things without someone to do them with because of the stresses involved of beginning to do them. I feel very much the same. Sometimes even the things you've had plenty of practice with, there's more joy when you get to spend a spark of that with another person once in a while. Anyway, less about my musical, social and melancholy this night, I'm gonna kick off this meditation by having a bong of cannabis. In case anyone's listening in the future and you don't know what a bong is, which is unlikely because of the internet, a bong is a water pipe that you load cannabis into and water, and it makes the smoke smoother to inhale. It's also way better to smoke in terms of delivering the effects of the cannabis without being time consuming, like rolling cigarettes or spliffs or joints or whatever people prefer. This, you just load it up and you're done with it in 5 seconds, and you get to carry on about your business as opposed to giving half out of 45 minutes just to a smoke. I don't know if anyone else knows this to be true, but I find beanie hats interesting, and hoods. Like, there's many times where we've gone on about kids wearing hoodies being troublemakers, and that correlation is a real correlation. It's just not across the board. People wear hoods to stay dry, people wear hoods to stay warm, some for comfort. And you know, I would bet that a lot of people who cause trouble, who wear their hoods, are also the same people who wear their hoods for comfort as a side effect of some kind of trauma or some kind of thing that they did not get that they needed during their early years that has caused that comfort-seeking coping mechanism to kick in. But clearly, coping mechanisms that are almost enough are never enough, whether it's an addiction to a substance or just a simple comfort. And it doesn't eradicate the problem, it doesn't dissolve the tension, it just distracts you from it, lifts you away from the tensions that you carry with you, just like coffee, just like cannabis, just like painkillers, just like anything that you use to improve your state of being temporarily. And there are probably a lot of things that we dislike about each other, that we point at each other about problems. They're largely rooted in not trauma. But I mean, people like Dr. Gabor Mate, Dr. Richard Norrie, like, they've specialised in some of the research on intergenerational trauma, on the dynamic of attachment between members of families and members of societies. As a society, we've moved from ancestral attachments, which are vertical down the bloodlines, into horizontal attachments, which is where you have kids at school all the time, the breaks that they look forward to with other kids their age, so they get socialised horizontally, and they become their peer group, the people who they're comfortable with. And their parents are working all day, busy. The parents' own age group are going to be their attachment group, unlikely the people at work, but the people who they get to spend time with in their free time. And that in itself, that creates an attachment for kids at their level and for parents at their level, include the fact that everybody wants their own free time to do something for themselves. And like, after all that pressure of full-time school, full-time work, and this is based on a system that's made for people who drink caffeine for longer days. People don't have energy left for themselves to do anything and for other people. They have to choose between. And if they choose for themselves, which is hard not to do in your little free time, it's very unmotivating, it's very unexciting. Maybe you'll settle back into video games. Maybe you can't be asked to do a lot of the things that you otherwise would. Maybe you didn't do that painting. Maybe you didn't sing that song that you always wanted to sing. We are overconsumed by all that we do. And we are in desperate need for the alignment of ourselves. That goes for us as a species. We need to be balanced. Everything needs to be put in its place. And you know what? It's been a runaway train to get here. A lot of us have been acting automatic. A lot of us have just been doing what we're told. A lot of us have just been doing things based on how we perceive they should be. A lot of us had been living a short-sighted life until social media revealed that to us. And then a lot of us became conspiratorial. A lot of us became full of fear. A lot of us became vegan. I mean, there's a lot of positives, but there's so much short-sightedness. The blind leading the blind. That does make it feel kind of dangerous. I mean, there's clear room and potential for manipulation. There's clear room for darkness in the big picture of everything that goes on. And I used to fear it, and I used to be dead set against. But I remembered the situation of bullying and how ever since even I was a kid, I'm only 32 now, but even when I was like 4 and 5 years old, they were teaching about bullying in my school. Did that stop all the kids from bullying? No. Why? Some are already too numb to hear the message, to feel the message at the level of the heart, to integrate it, to embody it. Why is that? I would say that is because of the very intergenerational trauma. That is because of the hand-me-down wound of not getting enough. You know, each of us try to do better than our parents did because we want better for our kids, and we just create a whole new kind of fucked up because we're all too busy. What can we do about this? You know, I think we would need some kind of plan. I think we would need some kind of big plan. I mean, if people aren't listening clearly, so you'd have to talk to the people who are listening. You'd have to rally them up. You'd have to try to stir up good intentions and good vibes. You'd have to try to, plant seeds through some sort of mechanism that spreads across the board, like, social media. You would have to convince people to spend more time at home, somehow. But people think that, people have thought that they need to be at work full-time to survive. Like, that's their biggest fear. So you'd need a bigger fear to put them at home, to make them build that alternative way of life, to bring any business that they can do at home and integrate it into parts of computer networks so that they can still achieve what they need. Kids would have to be given more time and perhaps more freedom to learn. Yeah, all of the essential stuff, but more freedom to seek and follow their interests. Energy comes out of what we do in response to what we do. If you're miserable and unmotivated doing something, then just maybe that's not what you should be spending most of your time doing. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have chore-like responsibilities here and there. But you have to separate people from their old lifestyles that they are clinging to out of sheer desperation that they think they need. And I don't know, how could you do something like that? How could you pull off something that world scale shakes the roots and causes people to begin to do more for themselves instead of being so dependent on the things that consume them, to empower them, to give them their freedom back to some degrees? Because that's the only thing that's going to solve the trauma crisis. And you know what? I'm sat here in 2021, and up until 2020 I was a conspiracy theorist. Don't get me wrong, I still have one foot in that mindset at all times. It is one of my mind's eyes, but I see a higher reality. I see the problems, and I see how some things seem to be forming in perfect motion to cancel out some of the very things we've been dealing with. And I don't know, man. The fear of food shortages made me want to grow my own food. The fear of my kids being exposed to unstable rule systems that are constantly fluctuating in the school was a larger worry about how they respond to sudden changes of rules than the virus itself. So that made me homeschool. All in all, I've seen a lot of positive reactions to what people have perceived as negative. And so now I have, people call conspiracy theorists crazy. Now I have this even bigger lens that's beyond goodness and then beyond the darkness, which in principle I'll just call dark for light, where certain illusions of harm are put into place, or maybe really unrolled, as a way to get you to react. Because some of you ain't listening. Some people will still be bullies. And you know what? Remember the game Lemmings? You know, that level of this reality exists because some of you ain't listening. What do you do with the people who don't listen? What do you do with the unreasonable, the unguidable? They don't listen to words, but they will react and learn in action. They'll react semi-automatically without thinking to a situation, and then they will learn from it. Are we just supposed to ignore the unteachable? Are we supposed to actually have some balls and do something about it? I mean, what do you want to do? Do you want to kill them? Do you want to imprison them? Do you want to keep them traumatized and keep it going, handed down to their kids? Or do you want to challenge it with something that's a little bit dark in itself as a way of giving them a rude awakening? The rest of us have been paying attention to the trickle through the stream. We've been sharing positive means, we've been uplifting ourselves. And I tell you what, some of us have been doing it a little too much. We've had our identities oversaturated with goodness. So much so that we deny our own power. But you know what? I don't see this as staying this way. I foresee that this is a turning wave, and this is exactly what it was designed to be. It is incredibly complex. I mean, I don't know whether this was designed by humans at the top or whether the humans at the top just see the potential and align with it. But I mean, there's opportunists for sure who are selfish at all levels, And you should not put yourself in the way of anyone who is dangerous, because some people really believe in that shit. Some people believe in separation. Some people believe that they only have their life to live, to get something for themselves, to get whatever shred of pleasure they can get their hands on. Pleasure. Whatever shred of pleasure they can get their hands on, and whatever control they can take over others to increase that. And a lot of people fear that. But you know, the way I see those people, they serve the purpose of, they seek to place, let's start at the smaller level. They piss us off, they show us who we don't want to be. We learn from that, yeah? It helps us grow. So is that really out of place? In action, it looks ugly, but in consequence, we grow. Right, now, take it to the next level. There's selfishness along a timeline. They seek more and more. So they seek to put control systems in place so they can get more and more out of other people. And they're quite clever because they give all of their time to themselves. So a lot of these power systems get put into place, yeah? I want to point out people who live in their goodness and live to serve others have no desire to put power systems in place, have no desire to become in charge of others. They only want they only mean well for others. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because a power system that moves more gets put into place by the greedy. And I'm not saying in all cases, no doubt people who are good put excellent, amazing systems into place too. But we already know about those. I'm just trying to cover the things that we feel are dark. Right, so they put a power system in place, and they end up being for profit, they end up being for dominance. But we're in a society where money is what pays us. We don't do bargaining anymore. Not in the classic sense. Bargaining may not be the word. Bartering. We don't do bartering anymore. So, money has created this situation where people can work for things they don't really care about. And that's created some negatives in some fields where people should really care about what they work about. But it's put some goodness into some fields where it wouldn't have ended up, where there are self-serving people who are there for profit. And how does it feel when a good person looks up at a boss who's an asshole, who seeks to only serve themselves? You know, they seek to do something about it half the time. There's unions that form, and like, people don't tolerate selfishness. It doesn't last very long. The power systems get put in place and they get left behind. They're not kept. They get left behind for the people who eventually take over it and infuse that with goodness and love for self and other. So it gets used in the best way that it could at its fullest potential. A system that was only originally put there for selfishness, that wouldn't have been put there otherwise. The action of an entire human's lifetime, maybe multiple generations, can be dark with positive results. All I'm saying is people think we already lived the golden age. We live at a golden age, one that was golden compared to the one before. But it just revealed a new canvas. It just revealed a new level, and with new levels, there's new devils. And now this new level is approaching very, very fast. Intimidatingly so. Like a storm. I think society is about to change quicker than we can imagine. I tell you what, by the way, if you haven't found out about how caffeine changed society, you should look into it. It is amazing. It has given me the respect also for caffeine. You know, I'll tell a little bit about it. When caffeine was introduced, like coffee and stuff on the market, it's like it changed the shape of society. Because all of a sudden people were able to fit like three times the amount of work into their day. So, as you can imagine, that allowed things like industry and the economy to really pick up their pace. And that is wild. I mean, we got industrialised by plants. It caused society to literally evolve faster. That was a joke in Futurama the once about Coca-Cola, when the Coca-Cola factory had sunk with Atlantis and sped up the evolution of the mermaids. A little bit of classic culture. I don't watch cartoons or TV anymore. I can't tolerate giving too much time to something that I feel goes nowhere. But anyway, it amazes me that caffeine also led to us being kind of more compulsive, making us more restless. It didn't just give us the ability to do more work, it sort of forced us, if we drank it, to do more work. So, we're still in the same society. This thing is still snowballing. We've designed work days, school days, lifestyles, everything we have designed around having caffeine pumping through our bloodstreams. And caffeine, it prevents the reuptake of the chemical adenosine in the brain. Adenosine is a sleep chemical which has a build-up across the day. The longer that we've been awake, the more adenosine we have in our brain. Caffeine prevents that from being reabsorbed, which is what makes you feel alert. Now, caffeine has a half-life of 6 hours, a quarter life of 12. So, that means if you have a cup of Starbucks running through your system at midday, you still have a quarter of that caffeine running through your blood at midnight. That's still functioning. And caffeine, during its first hours as a drug, it's like stimulating, uplifting, but during the second after that, I felt wrong calling it a second segment then, but after the first couple of hours, for the rest of the period it's in your body, it has depressant effects on your mood. It's still stimulating, so you're restless. You might be a little more indecisive at this point, but never mind how it affects you in action. Let's look at sleep, because if a quarter of that is running through your bloodstream at midnight, then that is affecting the quality of your sleep. Scientists have measured this. People have been getting like 20% less sleep. That is the equivalent of aging 15 years. 15 years. You can do that just by having caffeine too late in the day. Now, that causes us, while sleeping, to not have all that adenosine uptaken and reabsorbed. That causes us to feel tired and groggy and to go for that next coffee in the next morning, to feel like we need it. And then we're alert again because the adenosine is being held back even more. You know, that midday dip, that is not a part of regular cycles. Around that time of day, your bodily cycles, your rhythms in accordance with the sun, I cannot remember the proper term for them, but they should be at their peak, and it should be impossible for you to get tired and fall asleep at that point in the day. If you're tired and needing to reload on caffeine, then guess what? You've been having caffeine too late in the day, and it has been affecting your sleep. Now, the last 2 days I brought it early in the day, and yesterday I had them still early in the morning. I allowed that because I'm aware of the nature of addiction and withdrawal and things. And am I going to beat myself over the head with something that's going to cause headache? No. So I still allowed myself my morning coffee and thoroughly enjoyed it, and continued to have my usual coffee habits. But I decided not after 4. I was a little late. I didn't do it until 4:30. I've replaced my regular coffee with 4 Sigmatic Lion's Mane coffee. I'm not promoted by them or anything. They're not paying me. I'm not promoted by them. That was a complete incorrect phrase there. Just thought I'd acknowledge it. But that coffee, it has made a world of difference. It has eradicated the jitters. You can go for longer between coffees because you feel more energized, supported by the mushroom extracts that are in it. It's also slightly more bitter, so it's easier for your addictive tendencies to not attach to the taste. That's helpful. But after not having it after 4:30, I settled down. I replaced my 7 o'clock coffee with a chaga and cocoa mix, chaga mushroom, because normally I'd be having the coffee. Normally that would be giving me an energy boost, and I would be sitting alert, enjoying whatever podcasts I would listen to after that time. And I would kind of need it to stay alert. So I also enjoyed the hot drink and the comfort of having it and settling down at that time of the day. So I replaced it with the chaga for a weakened form of energy so that I didn't end up falling asleep too soon, so I could still enjoy what I wanted to enjoy. I had the cocoa chaga doubled as the pleasure, just the enjoyment for the settling down, to replace that monkey-like niggle in the back of the mind of, I'd love a hot drink, I'd love just something to settle down. And I knew that would be there, so I planned for that. And I tell you what, I slept better. I slept for an hour longer. Normally, sleeping for an hour or 2 hours longer doesn't make any difference to my state of fatigue, and I still need that coffee. But yesterday I felt so alert when I woke up. It was the day before I first cut out the coffee after 4:30. Yesterday I woke up and I felt so alert. Still had the coffees and stuff, but I noticed the energy lasted through the entire day. I had more vitality about me. So I did it again last night. I had my last coffee at 4:30 and the chaga at 7. And this morning I woke up a little early, but I was able to go back to sleep, which normally I can't do. And I dreamt, which normally I don't do. And I got back out of bed after that at 10 to 7, which is far later than I've been waking up. Usually it's 5. And I did not feel drained. I mean, I'm going to open my eyes for a second so I can check the time. Okay, it must have been 6:30. But I've got up, I've made a hot water bottle, because that's what I usually do for my stomach, because I have pretty severe chronic stomach issues, and a hot water bottle is a comfort. It helps things shift a little bit too. So I do that first thing of the morning. But this morning, I have been making myself 2 coffees at the start of every day. I have not had one yet. Go listen to the first recording. I could not communicate like this. I was at the depths of a coffee addiction, at the edge of a cliff, and the option was about to be more coffee. Interestingly, synchronistically, as it always fucking happens, apologies for the swear word, but it just bloody well amazes me, the timing that people put out content on the internet. I mean, either I get spied on and this whole thing is about me, and people put out content and I'm the centre of their universe, Truman Show style. But I don't believe that shit for a second. I know about quantum theory. I know about entanglement. This is synchronicity. The correct information gets put out at the right time, and you stumble across what you need to find. And yeah, adverts are listening to, and you get advertised things that corporations think you might want to buy or need to buy to shuffle the money out of your wallet. But there's a whole other level of synchronization going on here too, and it still happens when you separate yourself from the technology and from the social media feeds and try to limit how much you're being influenced by these things, so that your first feed that you scroll through is within. But this is all going somewhere. Okay, I've been pulling at the fringes of a big picture during this talk, and like, it is all part of the balance. It is all turning the pages of the book of humanity forward. You just have to look at what's going on, and you have to be intentional. You have to use what is available consciously, or it will use you. You have to use these technologies, or they will use you. This is not a joke. Those who have not been controlling themselves are being controlled. It's not about fear, it's not about genocide. It is about the damage we do to ourselves. And you know what? From the bottom levels, looking up, I can understand why people are conspiracy theorists, because it looks fucking grim. But they have to lie to the lemmings, of course they do. And you know what? It's not the act that matters, it is the consequence. If a lie achieves a greater result than a truth, if the lie puts into place a piece of growth, then reality kind of demands the lie be there, so that we can all take a step forward collectively. This is bigger than any little one of us. And have you seen the thought experiment where there's two sets of train tracks, and there's people on one and there's a worker on the other, and you have to decide to pull the lever and who to kill. Someone's getting killed no matter what. Don't you think that every decision dealing with large amounts of people in the world that have different beliefs and backgrounds, don't you think that every decision is going to be like that from the top down? Having to decide, okay, do we have this damage or that damage? Yes, there are strategically placed divides, but we build a divide of our own from these bottom levels, and we reinforce ourselves as lemmings. We can be more if we align with each other. Psychedelics have taken the world by storm, and they've become a new crutch for some. Yes, they show you answers. Yes, they take you to a higher vibrational state. but it is a free ticket and you come down. You need to design your lifestyle. You need to integrate the things that bring that vibration, and you need to target the obstacles that stand in the way of it. The obstacle is the way. Credit to Ryan Holiday for that quote. But man, we got to start rising up to tear down, and we got to start rising up to uplift. We got to start rising up to reconnect. We have to use what is available to us. What you don't understand. If you take the plunge, if you take the risks, the gates are open. That would not be true if they wanted to kill you. That would not be true if they wanted to wipe us out. They could have snubbed us in the press of a button. This is a strategic game of raise the water so that people climb. If you don't climb, you begin to feel like you drown. Now, this lens has so much to uncover when you begin to look at world events and things through it, when you begin to look through your goodness, through the darkness, combining them, dark for light, that people will use the illusion of darkness for goodness. And you know what? That people will play the roles of villains to make you fucking react. Have you ever seen that GIF on social media? There was these tiny little crabs about the size of your fingers if you're an adult. And there were two of them. And there was a human who pulled the claw. Is it a claw? The pincer of a crab. One of them. And regardless of how small they were, like, little one pulls its pincer back, human goes to pull it again. Second tiny crab runs in, places itself between the first crab and the human's fingers, even though it has no chance. And do you know what it does? It wraps its arms and its pincers in a hug around the first crab to protect it, so the human can't grab its pincers. It puts itself in between. Now, they had no chance. If that human wanted to kill them, it could have just stepped on them. It could have squeezed them between its fingers. It would have been gruesome. That instinct, don't you think that is worth something? To the top levels, don't you think that instinct is worth something? To those who are unafraid of manipulating you for your own good, don't you think that instinct is something that will stop the bullies from bullying, because there's a greater example instead of just words that pulls that instinct out of them? So, the game plan, it looks like divide, but they know instinct, they know action and reaction, they know the humanity of cause and effect. They have the best minds in the world underneath them and access to all of the minds who want to learn. You think it's a trickle-down system? Well, all the best ideas trickle up too. Yep, plagiarism, but how else are we going to put a better world into place? I'm not sure if I ended without completing a point, because sometimes it used to happen a lot. My memory would get hazy and I would lose track of what I was saying. I've spent so much time. I was isolated before lockdown because I just couldn't align with the world and the way it was going. I became depressed in response to the world. I didn't go on antidepressants or anything, but it didn't seem unnatural to me. It made sense that I was depressed with the world I was faced with. So I had a lot of time to look at all this. I've had a lot of time to bathe in the conspiracy theory mindset and to question everything, every event, and I can look at anything and I can see the room for manipulation now. But you know what? I choose to see the room for greater also. I choose. 2020 had conspiracy so mainstream and fear was vibing so hard that if you've been following symbolism and the coincidence of Tool's fear inoculum, which inoculum is basically a vaccine, and if it's a fear vaccine, then that is to end fear, an immunity to fear. And 2020 helped me step out of the conspiracy mindset while still including it as part of my view of reality. And my fear is gone. Now I fear mostly not doing more with my time. That's my biggest fear. Because doing more with my time means I get to give back to my family and to this world. And there's nothing more important for me to do with the rest of my life. However, the universe presents that opportunity to me to plant seeds or throw stones. I'll do it through my music, I'll do it through my poetry, I'll do it through my art, I'll do it through my meditations, I'll do it through these recordings, I'll do it through conversations with strangers. I have no greater desire than to be divinely aligned and to form some kind of group who desire the same. Because we can do something about this. This is by far the best I have ever been able to communicate this idea. So I am incredibly glad that I sat and I pressed record this morning. So far it has recorded 47 minutes, and that's cutting out the silence. I started recording this at 6:42 and it is now 7:44. Okay, so there has been like 13 minutes of silence cut out. Wow. Okay, but this one's going public. This one's getting sent around. You know, my old music, you can hear my fear mindset. You can hear it in some of the lyrics, but you can tell that my intention is only to uplift, to empower the listener. I do wonder whether there would be now some kind of cost to taking in too much of what I said there. But people who know critical thinking know to take what resonates and to question the rest, and even to question what resonates, to lean in deeply rather than just to take or not take. And I encourage you to do the same with anything that I say. Don't just take my word for it. You need to be thinking for yourself. If you drink caffeine after 7, let this be a message. After 7, let me rephrase that. If you drink caffeine after 4, cut it out. Even 5, try 5 p.m. Bring your caffeine that little bit earlier and just see how you sleep. See how you feel the next morning. Try it if you're scared. And trust me, I didn't want to quit caffeine because I was intimidated by the ideas of month-long headaches and stuff like that. So I've put it off for a long time, even though I've had some pretty neat suggestions that I should quit. after hearing the history of caffeine and the science of sleep with caffeine, those were the selling points for me to give this a go. And honestly, the last 2 days have made such a difference to me that I implore you, have a go. Right, I'm about to load up another bowl of weed for anyone who feels like they might want to join me after this ride. Loading it up. Make some noise just to give you a chance to load yours, because otherwise it's going to cut out the silence and my bong, being loaded, is going to sneak up on you and it's just going to click and go before you've even got your stuff in the bowl. So, like, mine's in my bowl now. I'm sprinkling a little more, because why not? Stronger. Okay. Let me just bring the lighter over to my bung now. I don't know if you're ready. I'm just stretching this out just a little bit. I'm not usually this good at talking at all, but for some reason for you, I can. So, here we go. Lighter. Hear it? I'm bringing the lighter to the bung. Okay, I'll shut up. Well, that was good. Right. I have really no structure to these things, but I thought it was cool yesterday to end on a poem, so I'm gonna pick something. Okay. I opened the page randomly and it's come to 39, impermanent number 39. Solstice never goes by too soon. Today the sun rose to be covered by the moon. What could it bring? The next decade looms. Forget resolutions, what you gonna do? For reference, this was 2019, the end of 2019. Go around in circles for another 10 years. Stay depressed in your comfort zone because of your fears. Let the opinions of others set your dreams on fire, or one step at a time, let yourself rise higher. Those not trying have no right to say it can't be done. Dreams are dying, short-sighted peer pressure's done. Small minds ain't the kind that big ideas speak. Your eyes are in the skies, theirs are in the streets. Seems like another world from a different angle. Polarities apart, they get it in a tangle. Trapped in a story with a disadvantaged start, until they slow down to see, can't speak purely from the heart. Don't tell them you're doing it, show it can be done. Credibility without resistance aren't while having fun. Don't let them stop you or say it can't be done. Breaking your chains will have them thinking out the box, and then some. This is how you make your impact. Live authentically, lead by example, be the change you want to see. Pursue your interests, talents and creativity. Infuse with love, life lessons and honesty. Leave a trail for others who are going where you've been. Carve the path, create for consciousness a slipstream. Someday where you've been may be with ease. Eventually, collectively, we'll manifest our dreams. Wow, I've got chills. It makes my hair stand on end. I sit and I write this, and it's like a multiple choice test, and I'm unaware of how it vibes as I'm writing it. I just follow the rhyme, and the next option comes. There's only so many choices for what match the next rhymes based on what you just said and what you could say. Another thing I encourage you to try is poetry. That's what the book that I just read from is about, is to encourage you to try poetry and to show you that you can start with any shitty line, any crappy line that you want, and it will still go somewhere if you just follow the rhyme and allow it. Particularly if you say how you're feeling, even if you don't know what you want to say, and then just rhyme with that, it will go somewhere, like it always does. You just gotta have trust in the language that has formed by no individual human being, but by all of them and in between all of them as a collective. Like, that is quite special to go exploring the field of language using rhyme. You explore the field of yourself using the field of language and rhyme. And I highly encourage it because it's a dance that pulls you forward through yourself with the rhyme as the driver, the mechanism that just keeps pulling it forward and pulling it forward and pulling out the next piece of information when that's quite difficult to do by yourself. So I encourage it, give it a go. I failed at English in school, okay? I failed at most of the things in school. I only passed in IT. Uh, don't get me wrong, I don't rate school very highly because I was uninterested. It did not motivate me, it did not encourage me, it did not drive me to learn. And as a result, and because of the sloppiness of the system, I failed many things. I either did badly on the tests, didn't have work that I did during the school term, or had my coursework lost by teachers, which in some cases having to rewrite on the last day. So yeah, I got an unfair disadvantage when it came to work in the system, but you know what? I am fucking glad. I've never had a full-time job. Before my son was born, I was like, I'll have a job before he's born. Kept telling myself. And I was just on the welfare benefits, which don't give you much to survive on, and they consume all your time seeking jobs that you never get through threat of not getting your money. And then I spent the first few years of my son's life in that state. Eventually, they had not given me my money so many times that I was like, why am I still jumping through these hoops when I know you're not going to give me my money? Why am I still doing all of this and giving up all of my time and essentially living a pathetic life that makes you feel impotent and weak and like you can't achieve anything and like your life is going nowhere and like you are drowning on just £50 a week, which a lot of that has to be spent on food, a lot of that has to be spent on travel to go get into places, to job interviews that never actually go anywhere. If you're lucky to get a job interview after the 200 emails you send out and get 2 replies of rejection, that is how poor people in this country have lived. And I am not the only one. People didn't believe me 16 years ago when I was a teenager, before social media, when this was all happening to me. But thank God social media came out. Thank God people were given the ability to talk to each other so that they could see what was going on here. But many people still jump through the hoops. Many people don't see what's going on. Many people just give up their lives to it. But some of us just abandoned the income. Me and my partner, we decided, okay, we will live on just our children's money, which was only 400 and something pound a month and £30 a week, which when you got to get food and pay for your electric and your gas, your heating, your internet, your phone, there's no money to live life. You treat yourself a little bit. No one's ever taught you to invest. You don't have confidence in yourself. So you just, For me, physically I was stuck, mentally I was free. And so my worldview began unfolding. Only once I was able to slow down and step back, only then I started to see the big picture. You know, at first I was like, this is facts, this is messed up, this, people are being manipulated, people are giving away their lives, people don't realise that they are not at conscious levels like North Korea, but at subconscious levels being brainwashed into thinking that certain ways of life are the way of life. Now, I don't buy into the idea that it's fully intentional. It could have come around by accident. It could have been part of an organised plan to organise us. But we tell stories about how our lives are, and we tell stories that we relate to. And to tell stories on TV, we're telling stories that we relate to from in society, which is stories of school, stories of work, and that reinforces the illusion of society. I mean, to be fair, there are science fictions which allow us to explore the consequences of ideas if we let them play out, which is amazing. There are other kinds of stories which I was the kind of person who was uninterested in because it was like Men in the Trees, and I found it too unstimulating in comparison to the other stuff that I related to because of what I was having to go through being in school and stuff like that. And the whole thing just reinforced itself on the psychic grid, also on the electrical grid. But the whole thing has not been negative. I mean, it's a great way to instill lessons into those who had no self-control, no intentionalism. I used to demonise the TV, but I do see the potential. You know, maybe it was to deal with the lemmings that I talked about earlier, in a dark for light kind of way. I've done a couple of really rough drawings. I'm going to post them alongside this podcast, and they'll show you a couple of the big principles that I've seen about the balances of how things seem to be working. And they're basically spiritual principles put into visual form. Very simple to understand. Alright. I'm feeling pretty good, and I've really enjoyed doing this, so I'm definitely going to do another. And right now, I'm loading up one more bong, okay? Because I'm going to have this bong, and I'm going to pick another poem, and really end it this time. Right as I get into this, I just want to point out, if you're still listening, you've made it pretty far in listening to me. And for that, I'm very, very grateful for, because these ideas are potent. And I feel like I have things to give to people. I want nothing more than to give back to the world. So if you've listened this far, you've allowed me to try. And it means you might also listen again. So thank you. I really appreciate that you've been here. Right, let's light up this bong. Let me bring this up on screen. 1 hour 4 minutes. It's currently 8:04. Okay, number 82. Again, I start with simple starting lines. I was feeling lonely when I started this. I'm noticing how connections of past no longer are around, and I miss people at times. I suppose that would be a simpler way to put it. But here we go. While we go, apart we grow, learning what we need to know. To find our flow, others must show the pieces that have helped them grow. Life's like a line dance made of chemical reactions, a prime trance creating thought turned into action, a set of hands multiplied, divided into factions, innovating lands, manifesting better traction. We are consciousness, but we give ourselves a label. Interconnectedness, separation is a fable. To love relentlessly, giving from your table, never needlessly, but to those who show they're grateful. Here to heighten this, got no time for being hateful. Ignorance ain't bliss, it keeps your life distasteful. Time to raise a fist, speak out against what's shameful. Are you ready for this? Time to find out what you came for. Thanks for listening. Right, this podcast has been brought to you by karmacreates.co.uk, and you can go there for some amazing artwork. Karma Lawrence is the artist responsible for the Trippy Drippy series of animals, which are very colourful and look like they're dripping and melting ever so slightly. She's done several animals, everything from jellyfish, cows, bears, bees, turtles. She's done tributes to things like Rick and Morty, to the Midnight Gospel. She's done artwork of Cheech and Chong. If you're a smoker, you'll recognise who they are, and it is awesome. The best part I haven't even mentioned yet, she does some amazing mandala artworks, and they are just spectacular. I've had the pleasure of watching some of these things form, and they come with no pre-planning. They just spawn across time on the page. She's developed a technique where it just unfolds. Recently she's been projecting even more scenery into the mandalas and having a mishmash, and also filling out the backgrounds behind some of the trippy drippies. We sell originals, we sell prints, we sell posters, we sell mugs, we sell notebooks, we sell tapestries or blankets in small, medium and large sizes, and all of them are amazing. They look awesome in our home, and they would look amazing in yours too if you're a person who loves artwork. And the amount of detail, they're great for value for money. Go and check out karmacreates.co.uk to get some of this artwork for yourself on your walls to brighten your home. Thank you for listening.